The Palestinian Health Ministry announced a surge in the death toll in the Gaza Strip resulting from the ongoing Israeli aggression on the enclave since October 7th. The number of fatalities is estimated to be around 22,600, 70% of which being women and children. In Turkey, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived on an official visit. Demonstrations were held to reject the U.S. official's visit. In Japan, the death toll following a 7.6 magnitude earthquake on January 1st rose to 126. Authorities also report over 200 people missing. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Saturday, the Palestinian Health Ministry announced a surge in the death toll in the Gaza Strip resulting from the ongoing Israeli aggression on the enclave since October 7th. They have estimated the number of fatalities to be around 22,600, 70% of which being women and children, that is 9,000 children and 5,300 women. Additionally, around 57,910 individuals have been reported injured, with a significant proportion being children. The report highlights the challenges faced by rescue efforts, indicating that there are still 7,000 people missing under the rubble who are presumed dead. Obtaining accurate numbers remains difficult due to relentless Israeli attacks and insufficient rescue missions. And recent studies revealed that at least 70% of civilian institutions and infrastructures in Gaza were destroyed as a result of the continuous air, land, and sea attacks carried out by the Israeli occupation army. According to reports published by a non-governmental organization, Israel deliberately destroyed or caused severe damage to a number of essential facilities, including schools, industrial centers, hospitals, and clinics, mosques and churches, as well as press and media offices. Several residential buildings and houses were also among the constructions destroyed, resulting in the displacement of most people from Gaza. The issued document denounced that the Israeli bombing seems to be aimed at carrying out a collective punishment against the population and turning the area into an uninhabitable place for Gazans.
30 minutes ago, a house near our house was targeted without any prior warning, causing many deaths and injuries. We were sitting at home. There was nothing, and without any warning, the house next to ours was directly targeted. We're civilians. We have no weapons and no connection to the resistance.
The United Nations Humanitarian Affairs Department and Emergency Relief Coordinator denounced that Gaza has become a place of death and desperation. The Secretary General of the international body, Martin Griffiths, pointed out that the Gaza Strip is an impossible place to live in due to the destruction caused by the intense Israeli bombings. Griffith remarked that in the last 3 months, the territory has become a dangerous place where citizens are daily victims of threats to their very existence. The spokesman demanded an immediate end to the war and deplored the public health crisis faced by Gazans, while recalling that thousands of Palestinians have died as a result of the intense military incursions. And amid the Israeli ground offensive in the Gaza Strip for the first time over the last 10 days, the World Health Organization and the UN Population Fund were able to deliver medical supplies to the central drugstore of the Gaza Health Ministry in Khan Yunis.
So by depositing to the central drugstore here, each hospital will come and retrieve its supplies and refill their pharmacies, their stocks, so that they can care for patients. This is the first time we've been able to make this delivery in about 10 days. So hospitals have been running short on some supplies, but we hope that this delivery and future deliveries will help to meet the needs of these hospitals, which are working at 2 or 3 times their normal capacity.
Lebanese militant group Hezbollah attacked on Saturday the 2 air control bases installed by the Israeli occupier in the north of the Palestinian territories. The Lebanese group confirmed it had attacked the Meron air base situated at the top of the Harmak Hill following the killing of Hamas leader Saleh al-Aruri in Beirut. The air base coordinates and manages all operations that the Zionist armed forces directed to Syria, Lebanon, Turkey, and Cyprus. The Israeli military said earlier that about 40 rockets were fired towards the Meron air surveillance base and that it had responded by attacking a cell that had took part in the attack. There were no immediate reports of casualties or damage. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Those stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Turkey on an official visit. On Saturday, he met with his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan in Istanbul. This is Blinken's fourth trip to the Middle East in 3 months since the Israeli-Hamas war erupted last October 7th. Besides Israel and Turkey, the State Department says Blinken will also visit Greece, Jordan, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the West Bank, and Egypt in an effort to prevent the Israel-Hamas war to become a broader conflict. Dozens of demonstrators gathered in Istanbul on Saturday to protest against the visit of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to Turkey. The protest was organized by the People's Liberation Party, a small community party with demonstrators carrying placards reading "Mother USA, get out of the Middle East," and "Zionist Israel, get out of Jerusalem."
Fundamentally, we're here today to protest Sweden's NATO membership. At the same time, we're also gathered to protest Israel's attack against Gaza. We say that Turkey should not cooperate with the U.S. in any way on this issue. On the contrary, it should oppose U.S. imperialism and NATO as much as possible.
On Saturday in Syria, U.S. military looted a new batch of crude oil from the oil fields in the country's northeastern territory. Activists near the Iraqi border reported that a new U.S. convoy of 56 tanker trucks loaded with oil left for Iraq through the illegal Mahmoudiyah crossing. In addition, the army removed a caravan with 34 trucks, containers, and tankers at its illicit border crossing at Al-Walid. In this regard, Syria recently condemned the intensification of looting and smuggling of the country's natural wealth, calling this action a criminal act that violates international law. So far, the looting of minerals by Washington has generated losses of nearly $111 billion to the nation. In Japan, the death toll following a 7.6 magnitude earthquake on January 1st rose to 126. Authorities report over 200 people still missing. The Japanese government announced that it increased the search and rescue personnel from 700 to 1,100. The government also warned of possible landslides on cracked roads that are at great risk from heavy rain and snow. The weather agency reported that the recent earthquake was the strongest since records began in 1885, with a depth of 16 kilometers. In Peru, rain threatened to isolate entire communities due to overflowing of main rivers in several regions of the country. At least 400,000 people are at risk of flooding due to the increased flow of several rivers as the rainy season is just beginning. An alert issued by the National Meteorological and Hydrological Service prompting the population to cross pedestrian bridges that have not been maintained for years by the government. In response to this, the Emergency Operations Center issued a short-term warning on the possible activation of streams to the most vulnerable provinces. The Court of Justice of Ecuador ordered this Friday the preventive incarceration of former Vice President Jorge Glass. Judge Felipe Cordova granted the request of the State Attorney General, Diana Salazar, and issued the arrest order against Glass, who is presently in the Mexican Embassy in Quito, waiting for an asylum request to be processed. Glass said he will seek to reverse this case after the Supreme Federal Court of Brazil annulled the evidence used by Odebrecht, which has affected politicians of that country. The former vice president spent 5 years and 4 months in jail after being sentenced to 8 years in a bribery case for which there was no solid evidence. Bolivia on Friday reported its biggest ever cocaine seizure, more than 8 tons of the drug, apparently destined for the Netherlands and found in a massive shipment of timber last month. Interior Minister Eduardo del Castillo announced that the powder cocaine had a street value of about 526 million US dollars. The minister said that the largest cocaine seizure in the history of the country was discovered on a truck on an Indian road on December 30th, hidden among a Europe-bound lumber shipment. 4 people were arrested, including a Colombian national that Del Castillo described as a big fish in the drug trade. According to the United Nations, Bolivia is the world's third largest producer of coca and cocaine after Colombia and Peru. In Guatemala, indigenous people maintain resistance against the powers of the state that threaten democracy and the results of the presidential elections held in 2023. They expect the new government to attend to the excluded peoples. Let's watch more details in the following report by our correspondent Rolanda Garcia.
Social and indigenous movements start the year 2024 motivated to defend democracy and their territories.
We are in meetings at the grassroots level to continue agreeing and articulating with the different authorities of the different municipalities to continue with this struggle, and even more so because we are aware of all the acts that are being committed criminalizing the indigenous authorities.
Social and indigenous movements emphasize that their actions are aimed against corruption and criminalization carried out by the powers of the state.
There is a conglomerate of looters in this country, and they have to demonstrate which side they're on. Either they are on the side with the people or they are against the people. That's what they need to see today, and what all the people need to pay attention to.
They warn that they will reinforce the mobilizations until the elected authorities take power and maintain the expectation that the new government will work for the benefit of the population.
The hope that we have is that our rights are respected, rights to territory, to health, to education, and if there are mega projects in the territories, we should be consulted.
That our next authorities do not ignore us, that they take us into account. I know that we can also support the processes.
Since the presidential binomial of Bernardo Arevalo won the elections, institutions such as the Public Prosecutor's Office have maintained a campaign denounced as a persecution that jeopardizes the popular will expressed in the last elections.
Yes, what exists in Latin America and here in Guatemala is the continuation that technical coups are being carried out against democratically elected governments. That happened in Brazil with Dilma Rousseff, and that also happened in Peru with Castillo.
A few days before the new government takes office, Rafael Curruchiche, head of the prosecutor's office against impunity, challenged the resolution that ordered it to guarantee the inauguration of Bernardo Arevalo and the elected officials.
Rolanda Garcia, teleSUR, Guatemala.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Comes our news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The Sudanese people expressed their longing for a solution to the ongoing deadly military conflict that has plagued their country for almost 9 months, yearning for an end to their displacement and embracing normal life in 2024. On April 15, 2023, the capital Khartoum was shaken by heavy gunfire and explosions between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces. The consequences of the month-long military conflict have been devastating, resulting in Sudan witnessing the largest wave of internal displacement in the world, according to the UN. More than 7.1 million people have been displaced inside and outside the African country, while about 1.4 million Sudanese are living as refugees in neighboring countries.
We have been exhausted from moving from a city to a city. We want stability in the year. I'm worried about my children's future as schools were shut down since April. We want to see peace coming soon so we could go back to our lives.
A decision by Senegal's Constitutional Council to reject the candidacy of jailed opposition leader Ousmane Sonko to run in next month's presidential election was described as an electoral farce by his lawyer. The 49-year-old opposition figure, who came third in the 2019 presidential election, has been at the center of a bitter standoff with the state that has lasted more than 2 years and sparked several episodes of deadly unrest. Authorities had previously refused to provide Sonko with all the necessary documents to run in the February 25th poll. They argued that Sonko had been removed from the electoral register after being sentenced in June to 2 years imprisonment for morally corrupting a young person. He has been jailed since the end of July on other charges, including calling for insurrection, conspiracy with terrorist groups, and endangering state security.
It's clear that the cascade of violations of the law is not stopping, and that there is a desire to move towards elections that lack transparency from the outset, and that in any case will not reflect the will of the nation. I think that national and international public opinion will remember that this is an electoral farce that has been organized and that continues to be organized.
The European Commissioner for Agriculture said he lacked new restrictions on Ukrainian agricultural imports, especially on poultry meat and sugar. As the Commission molds the extension of the free trade regime with Ukraine until 2025, the Commissioner argued that the flow of cheaper agricultural produce from Ukraine has sparked worries among European farmers and governments about uneven competition and risk to domestic production. The European Union Agriculture Commissioner even threatened to withdraw his support for continued trade liberalization with Ukraine if his conditions are not met. In Italy, the Superior Institute of Health reported over 370 deaths per week and 38,737 cases of COVID-19. The Director General for Health Prevention of the Ministry of Health reported a 33% increase in the number of cases compared to the 279 patients who died between December 21st and the 27th last year. In Italy, 218,284 people are still positive for the disease, of whom 6,320 are in general hospital wards. The Director General also pointed out that in the last week, 242,518 tests were carried out to detect the presence of the virus, and the positive rate was 16 percentage points, 2.1 points lower than in the previous 7 days. In France, workers at the Abbey of Mont Saint-Michel remain on general strike after 11 days demanding better working conditions. A quarter of the workers at one of France's main attractions and a World Heritage Site have stopped their work because they say it is physically impossible to continue working with the current conditions of the building. Protesters say that given the cold, the humidity, and the steps they have to climb every day, the number of employees must be increased, and also the salary as well as repairs to the monument's infrastructure. The Mont Saint-Michel was named a World Heritage Site in 1979 by UNESCO and received more than 3 million visitors a year. And in other news, this time in the world of sports, Japanese Tomo Otosaka has been the leader of stolen bases in the last 2 seasons of Venezuelan baseball, and now he is betting on a championship and the Caribbean Series. Otosaka led the Venezuelan Professional Baseball League in stolen bases with 17 in 52 games in the 2023-2024 season. The Bravos reached the semifinal this time after being eliminated in the previous season when they were looking for a spot in a wildcard game. Otosaka became the second player in the history of the Bravos to reach 100 homers in his first 2 seasons in LVVP. Otosaka also has experience in Mexico with the Obregon Yaquis during the winter and Bravos de León and Zaraperos del Saltillo in the summer.
I want to learn more good baseball players, more good baseball players. I hear in Venezuela good baseball players. So I want to learn those guys. I want to grow up, so because I came here. Japanese baseball is nervioso. muy serio. Cada play, en serio. No have fun. No like here. Yeah. Here, more fun.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.